Ladies and gentlemen, let the record reflect the time is now 7 p.m. This is a special meeting of the Board of Trustees, and today is Thursday, August the 26th. I do call the meeting to order and declare that we have a quorum present. This evening, Mr. Mullinax will lead us in the pledges, and Ms. Juanice Butler will lead us in the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
If you would like to join me in bowing. Dear Heavenly Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to serve this great community and the youth of this community. And Father, we just ask you to cleanse our minds and our hearts to focus on the job at hand, Father God, removing all distractions and annoyances and nuisances, Father God, so that we could do what is right and pleasing in your sight, O God. I pray for your mighty hedge of protection around this district and this community and our comings and goings, Almighty God. And all of this I ask in the almighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Juanice and John. Our first item on the agenda is public testimony. And I believe Blaze is checking to see if anyone has signed up. Okay, let the record reflect we have 3 individuals that have signed up. Stephanie Belvin, Gary Smith, and Ryan Reagan. And Stephanie signed up first. So if you'll come up to the mic and state your name and your address, you have 3 minutes. And I don't have the district protocol sheet in front of me, but I'll just caution you, we ask that you not mention any district names if in your public comments, just out of protection for our employees. So you have the floor.
My name is Stephanie Belvin. I live at 535 South 11th Street in Aransas Pass, Texas. And I'm just here to share my feelings on mandating masks in the classroom. I feel that it should be left up to individual parents. As a parent, that's all I do. I'm super mom. Nobody knows my kids better than me. And I feel that we have had so much uncertainty. You can go back to normal. No, back. It's just too much for them, and they're stressed out. And I just feel that I have the right to choose what is best for my child. And what is best for everyone's child. And the only people that are going to know that are the parents and the people that love them that can make those choices. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Mr. Smith.
By the way, I just want to let everybody know we went on 3 volleyball games today.
Awesome.
First round poll, and as a result, we get rewarded with an 8 o'clock game on Saturday. That's nice. Anyway, the girls played pretty well today. That's the side of the thing. Anyway, Gary Smith, 2373 Morgan Lane, Ingleside, Texas. Whoa, sorry. Yes, my kids are transfers here, so I only live one. I'm missing my one street, so. But I'm up here. I do want to let everybody know this. You know, we were, as employees, we received the email survey in regards to that. I will be honest with you, I voted no. I look at it from a perspective, kind of a little bit what Stephanie said as well. During this whole process, I've only worn masks when we were required to by the district and when I couldn't go into a store to buy something. Other than that, I'm not wearing masks. My kids don't wear masks. And again, it's one of those things that I do believe if someone wants to wear a mask, then feel free to wear a mask. The only thing that concerns me, if it ends up becoming something that's mandated into the classrooms, is that we start going backwards in the classrooms. thing that we don't realize is that CDC comes out and says, in order to be effective against this virus, you have to wear masks, you have to have social distancing. A lot of those factors, those restrictive factors are thrown out now. And they say that masks alone are not enough to protect you. But if someone feels comfortable wearing that mask, then I say, go ahead and wear it. But I myself, as a teacher, I don't want to wear a mask, because that to me restricts me. And it restricts activity with my kids and the activity that I can have based on relationships. Because if I'm gonna start wearing a mask, then I'm gonna start staying away from you. And that to me is what concerns me and scares me, is that it kind of pushes us back to a digressing method. And so all of a sudden, if she's wearing a mask and I'm having to wear a mask, then guess what? I'm not gonna do my teaching job like I'm supposed to. And I'm not saying the mask stops me, but that's what we revert back to, because now all of a sudden, everybody's afraid, and we all have to wear that mask to be able to survive. And it's just me. I've never been tested. I've never been vaccinated. I won't. And part of it's because I'm a biologist, and I can't get away from that. But anyway, I just wanted to share with you that I personally myself am against. If they want an option of wearing a mask, I think it should be mask optional. That's what I'm asking the school board to consider, at least for the secondary, and make it mask optional. And then we go from there in whatever the direction we want to go as a school district. So that's all I wanted to share with you, just make it a mask optional, and I'm good with that. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Mr. Reagan.
Okay, my name is Ryan Reagan. I live at 2665 West Highland in Aransas Pass. I just learned at this meeting a few minutes ago. I was sitting over at the football field watching the JV play football, and they said that y'all were having this meeting. I felt like I had something to say. I don't look at the masks one way or the other as political. I don't look at them as what your beliefs are in one way or the other. But what I do see is, y'all know I'm a fireman, we're seeing this every day. We're seeing them from the very beginning of it. We pick up people from their houses. We pick up people, take them to the hospital, maybe their last ride they ever get in the outside world. I understand that. But the one common denominator that we do have with masks or no masks is, once people leave where the masks are mandated at, those masks are off. We go into a house full of people full of COVID, they're not wearing a mask. Whenever these kids leave this school and they go to the bowling alley, they're not wearing a mask. They go to the skating rink, they're not wearing a mask. They go hang out at their friend's house on a Friday night, they're not wearing a mask. So to try to mandate masks in any area, even the fire department doesn't mandate masks for us, and we're front line. We're there with them. We're doing it. To say that you have to wear a mask in some people's eyes is more controlling than it is protecting. A lot of these patients that we go to, they were wearing masks, but they're not getting it where they have to wear a mask at. They're getting it at the bowling alley. They're getting it at the family function on Saturday afternoon. They're getting it on Sunday afternoons when the whole family gathers up to watch football and barbecue for these preseason games. That's when this is happening. It's not happening at work. That's not where this happens. It's not happening at school. Are there kids coming to school with COVID? Yes. Are they giving it to every single kid up and down the hallways all day long? No. So, to mandate masks in this situation is more of a controlling, more of a, we're going to show you what we can do atmosphere, not so much a we're going to protect the kids. Like I said, I'm there. You know what? And I'm vaccinated. I've got the vaccine. I'm not afraid to say that. It's not a political affiliation of any sort. If parents want their kids to be vaccinated and be protected, all the way down to 12 years old, they can get them vaccinated at this point. And so to say we're going to protect you, it's kind of tough for y'all to do when the parents have the option to get these kids vaccinated. They have the option to send their kids to school in masks, and there's kids walking around the hallways right now with masks on. It's not like the kids are getting picked on for wearing masks. You do what you want to do. And there hasn't been an issue with that yet. Are kids going to get COVID? Yeah, they are. Are they going to get it at school? Probably not. But are they going to get it everywhere else? Yeah. Whenever your kids go home and they're hanging out with their friends, kids, grandkids, etc., nephews, they are not wearing masks around everybody else. So it seems kind of silly to put them all together in a school and say you're going to wear a mask here, and then as soon as you leave our campus, we're going to take it off.
You have 1 minute left.
That's most of what I have to say, other than I'm in it every day. Vaccinated, not vaccinated, mask or no mask. This isn't a, it's pretty non-discriminatory when you're in it. So to try to say that the mask is going to help, I watch people who say I wore my mask and I washed my hands, take them to the hospital for their last ride. So
Your time has expired. You want to go ahead and finish real quick?
it's not just understand that there is more to this than masks. And I feel like if you mandate masks, then you're more upsetting those around you than actually controlling anything.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank all you guys for your public comments. We appreciate it. Just real quick, at the end of the day, as advocates for public education, all of us in this room, we're all in it here for the same thing. We're in here to protect the health of our students. We're not all going to agree about a mask mandate, but let there be no doubt. I know everyone. I see you guys at everything and with your kids that we're all here for our students and we want to see them safe. We're all on the same page when it comes to that. Before I turn this over to Ms. Cook, I do have some comments I'd like to make, some research that I've done, and just want some information that I want to share with my fellow board members. Of course, as we all know, we're here to discuss the mask mandate. As our Texas students have returned to school, COVID-19 cases have surged in our area, threatening to overwhelm our hospitals. Public health officials across the state, experts, are sounding the alarm over the Delta variant. Without any state funds for remote learning, our school districts are rushing to figure out what's the best thing to do for us. We're struggling with Governor Abbott's prohibition against mask mandates in schools. In disregard of the governor's bans, numerous school districts across the state have enacted mask mandates, prompting a flurry of legal actions in our court systems. These school districts have chosen to defy the ban despite the governor's threats of fines and court battles. In defiance of Abbott, these school districts, including Dallas, Houston, Austin, Fort Worth, made face masks a requirement on their campuses to help protect students and staff members against COVID. Texas school districts across the state have chosen to defy the ban despite the governor's threats of fines and court battles. Recently, TEA, the Texas Education Agency, announced it's not enforcing Abbott's order in public schools because of ongoing legal battles in the state and federal courts. In other words, school districts are able to enforce school mandates due to TEA's updated health guidance. It doesn't stop there. The Texas Supreme Court has denied a petition from Governor Greg Abbott and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton that aimed to reinstate a ban on mask mandates in school. The decision, which is temporary, comes amid a bitter battle between Abbott and local leaders, school officials, over control of school masking policies. In May, Abbott issued an executive order that barred public schools and most government entities from imposing the mandate. Abbott has stood by the order despite it being met with pushbacks from schools and even President Biden, who called the ban a bad health policy. Travis County Judge John Sofer has granted a series of temporary restraining orders against Abbott's ban, which allowed several school districts to impose school face mask mandates in schools, And in response to that, Attorney General Paxton appealed his order. His office said in a statement he will sue every single local entity and local official who violates Abbott's order. If they continue to disobey, I'll pursue additional legal sanctions, he said. The Texas Supreme Court did not rule on the substance of Abbott In Texas Attorney Paxton's request, instead, it cited a provision that requires a case to be brought to the appellate court before they're decided by the state Supreme Court. The Texas Association of School Board has published a mask mandate in Texas schools. And I quote here, in response to the rapidly evolving health situation here in Texas, TASB has developed the following short Q&A in support of its members. Naturally, we understand that Texas is a large state with significant variations in geography, demography, and community standards. That's precisely why on this issue, TASB advocates for local control. It's been TASB's longstanding tradition to support advocates of local authority of school boards to govern the schools in their communities, and that tradition continues to be their stance. Here's their response to questions they received concerning the Executive Order GA 38. Does TASB consider lawful exercise of the governor's authority? No. TASB views the executive order as an overreach and an intrusion on local independent school districts' authority to govern and oversee the management of the Texas school system. As such, TASB supports school districts who have taken steps to implement health and safety measures that respond to COVID-19 conditions in their communities. To this end, TASB has written a letter to the Texas Supreme Court emphasizing the importance of local decision-making on the issue of mask policies at the local board level. Additionally, TASB's Legal Assistance Fund joins the Friend of a Court brief in which school districts effectively demonstrate that the executive order is not a valid exercise of the executive authority under the Texas Disaster Act, and the governor's authority to suspend procedure law during disaster does not include the power to undermine local school governance. It's important to note here, these cases are pending around the state and will likely be decided by the Texas Supreme Court. Unfortunately, these appeals could take several weeks. And then there's a provision that says, here at TASB, we find it deeply disturbing that school districts are facing the dilemma of potentially violating the executive order to safeguard the health of students and staff. We ask the districts that are not currently facing this dilemma to support the effort of fellow Texas school districts to ensure that our state's longstanding tradition of local control is protected. Question: is there individual liability to school district trustees who adopt a mask mandate? Answer: generally speaking, we understand the adoption of a mask mandate to be local governance, a local government's decision made in good faith in the course of the official's duties. As such, the actions of individual decision makers should be covered by immunity under state law. While it's impossible to give a conclusive answer when the legal issues are in such a flux, individual liability for individual school board members is highly unlikely. Here's a quote I found from a school district in Dallas by their board president. They just recently passed a mask mandate. Locally elected boards of trustees have rights and responsibilities under Texas law to make decisions for their school districts. With their vote, Richardson ISD, along with other ISDs, are in an effort to protect that local control so school districts can make local decisions based on their conditions in their communities. One of the things that it doesn't mention, and just for the trustees, is here in Aransas, Mr. Reagan alluded to it about the vaccination. That if you have a choice of whether you're going to be vaccinated or not, up to the age of 12. We have 500 students in our school district that don't have that choice. They can't be vaccinated. So we have them here in our school systems, and them just like the rest of our students are under our guidance and governance to make sure that we keep them safe. So I just wanted to share, there's a lot of stuff evolving. I think when we walked in just a little while ago, hot off the presses,
Yes.
Ms. Cook had for us was Ken Paxton's letter, and I'm sure went out to every district that basically stated the same stance that I just read to you of what the governor's office is saying. And then from Walsh Gallegos, which is our legal team of attorneys, and just like John said when I walked up, you got to read a lot to get to the bottom
Yeah.
to actually meet where the potatoes are. It says, while the temporary restraining order in either case is in place and the temporary injunction that may come, schools are free to require or not require masks, subject to their local orders where valid. So, I mean, the bottom line of all that is until this has some type of legal finding by the Texas Supreme Court, school districts have local control to make the decisions for their communities as they see best for their students and staff. So with all that said, I'll
Okay.
pass it over to Ms. Cook, and she'll share some
Okay.
information.
I didn't
with
know when
us.
I became a superintendent, I also got to learn to be legal counsel. So I've been having to learn really fast, read things, and especially when it comes hot off the presses. These two documents that you had on the top, they are definitely hot off the presses. So I was working very quickly to make sure I understood what this meant so that I could share this with you this evening. The first one, Ken Paxton's, I just want to read Texas Supreme Court's decision to grant the emergency motion of temporary relief in the case of Abbott versus San Antonio, keeping the decision to enforce mask mandates with the governor, not local government entities. So when you read that, it's like, okay, so what exactly does that mean for us? When you take it for face value, it looks like the Supreme Court has basically put a motion that it must stay with the governor's mandate. Walsh Gallegos always is very quick to come out as soon as these come out to give us our alert. So you're right, there is a lot in here, so I've had a lot more time to read it than you did and confer with counsel. So basically, they talk about a temporary injunction. They'll say TI in here. That's a temporary injunction. And you'll see where the Dallas County had a TI, a temporary injunction. It kind of gives a lot in that first paragraph, and then it goes into, so where does this leave schools? So when you go to the second page and you go underneath, it's the first full sentence where it says both. Both have statewide prevent the governor and his agents from enforcing the mask provisions. It's going in telling you what the orders have been, the TI and the TRO, where they and basically it says here that the TRO will expire at the end of the day this Sunday, August 29th. And the TRO for Point Isabel, I'm sorry, so the TRO for, let's see, which one was that? That was for Cameron County. And then the other one will expire, these are the litigation pieces that are there, well, on Thursday, September 2nd, I'm sorry. So the next step for both of these cases would be for the judges to issue TI orders or put the restriction in place longer. Then you go into what Mr. Galvan was just reading. While a TRO in either case is in place and any TI that may come, schools are free to require or not require masks subject to their local orders were valid. So what you have to look at is as long as a TRO or TI is in place, then there is some loophole there, and that's what some of the districts are trying to do is go through that loophole for that. But the issue here is those are both expiring. So as of Sunday evening and Thursday, September 2nd, both of those will close back up, and then it will be then waiting for further decisions. So that, I say all that to say, and even as our counsel said, this is still very muddy. It's back and forth, and so the litigation will continue. What it's looking like at this point is that the window is closing and that we knew that even when we first talked about putting this even as a topic of discussion, that by the time we got here, the window could completely close. So as you consider making your decision, just realize that you could make a decision tonight under your local control to do that, but by Monday morning, it could be null and void. Or not. I mean, that's just going to be how fluid this will be, which goes to the point that one of our speakers did, is that back and forth. So I just want to say that from being a part of that back and forth, and knowing how difficult it was on our students first and foremost, and then our staff, and then even us as administration, to constantly have to pivot back and forth, on again, off again, mask on, mask off type thing. I just want to caution us all to keep that in mind, because I feel like that's my responsibility to share with you from a district standpoint. I do have concerns about that, especially because we thought that we were being told that it would be 30 days or more out before this would start closing up. But it's looking like, according to this document that just came out this afternoon at 5:17 p.m., that may be closing sooner than we thought. So just to be aware, and that could change again by 7:17 in the morning. But as I wanted you to know, that is that piece. So now I'm going to go to what I had to bring to you before this. And please stop me, and I'll try to answer questions. But once again, I am trying to keep up with this as much as I can and be fair to the whole process. The whole point of this conversation was to begin to look at, because we've come back to school, we're in our second week of school, we're seeing the COVID cases. Of course, fear starts rising up, and I think we have to caution ourselves to be careful not to make a decision based on fear that we may have, or fear that others may be projecting onto us. And so in doing that, because we're all human, and because I feel very responsible for this entire district, as you do, and kind of feel like the mother of all these children, and I don't want it to see anyone sick on my watch. And so I think we take that as very, very seriously. So with that, I wanted to ensure that what I brought to you tonight was as much information, not to overwhelm you, but to provide you with good pieces to look at in your decision making. I have to admit, when I started out Monday preparing for this till today, my thinking has shifted because of me diving in and looking at this from every different perspective. So I'm going to try my best to give you the facts so that you can then make your own decision. If you wish to know in the end what I'm thinking, I'll be glad to share it, but I don't know that that's my place at this point. You probably will figure it out as we go, because it's in order for me to share this, the information is, and I've looked at it from every different way. What I was looking for was, it's easier to make a decision if you have some data and something to stand on, instead of she thinks, he thinks, or we think. And so I was trying to find that. This is very difficult. That's what the issue's been with this entire COVID experience, if you want to call it an experience, is it's based on so many unknowns. What is the truth? What is fact? What is not fact? And so it's very difficult. And so you're going to find as we go through some of this, it's still some of the same thing, but I'm trying to give you as much information as possible. So hopefully I don't muddy the water for you, but help in you feeling good about the decision that you will make. First of all, I gave you the enrollment. I was interested personally to see, is this affecting students coming to our district? We had a projection. I'm looking at this page here, this one. We had a projection of over 1,700 students when we were looking at pre-enrollment possibilities. So that was my first thought, is, oh my goodness, is this going to scare off some people? What's going to happen? So you'll see I gave the enrollment for each campus as well as our district. And as you look at Falk, you can see that every day our enrollment has increased up until today, and we did go backward just 3 students. And that's pretty normal back and forth. Some of that I think might be some fear, and some just deciding we're going to homeschool because there's not a virtual option right now. And we've had a lot tell us as soon as some of this surge is over, we're coming right back. They don't plan on keeping their children out. Charlie Marshall has continued to grow. Had a couple of students less today, but up to this point, every day we were growing. AC Blunt continues to grow each day, more and more students. High school continuing to grow each day, more and more students. District total overall has grown every day with a total loss of 1 today, with our current enrollment being at 1,667 students. We ended last year with 1,620 students. So that that's looking pretty good in the midst of knowing that we still have a lot of no-shows that just have not even come to school because they're waiting to see what happens. So that was the first piece I wanted to give you, was our enrollment. Overall, our enrollment looks healthy, and I feel like once we get past this, we will see quite a surge.
What was the number of students that registered? When you say the no-shows, what are we looking at and how many have not
I
started
wrote
day
that
one yet?
somewhere. Did I put that here? It's on this page. 37.
37 have not.
37 that we had that we expected to come on the first day of school, and we have 37 that are just never showed up, and they haven't gone anywhere else.
Those are district-wide.
Yes, sir.
When you say they haven't gone anywhere else,
We've not received any indication that they have entered into another school.
And that would be through the PEAM system. if they
Yes.
didn't.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Our absences and attendance rates, I wanted to look at that because I know with all that's going on, we wanted to track how we're going to do. We always try to achieve a 95% attendance rate is our bottom line of where we like to be. That helps us in so many different ways, but mostly for the students to know that we have 95% of our students there in the classrooms learning. So this one we started tracking deeply this week because last week was fluctuating a little here and there. So I started here on this week because this is where we started seeing those increases. And you'll see that our attendance rate for Falk started Monday at 85%. And then we went to Tuesday 85%. Wednesday, 82%, and today we went back up to 84%. So we're kind of, what I was trying to track here is that going to take a dive, or is it going to dip and start plateauing? I'm hoping that's a plateau. I won't really know for a few more days. So there's not a lot of data that I have to bring to you, but I'm bringing what I do have. Charlie Marshall was at a 92%, went to 92%, 88%, 88%. AC Blunt, 90, 89, 87, 86. So it's not huge differences, but there are some indication that we're having some fluctuation. High school was at 90%, 89%, 86%, and bounced back to 91% today. That was very promising. So overall, our attendance rate started this week at 89, 89, 85, and then back up to 87%. We have had all the clerks are going through and they're calling all of the students and asking, and we're tracking that, putting it on the reasons that they're out so that we can determine, because I wanted to look at that, what is happening. And so the majority of what we're seeing is that, which is I applaud our parents for being proactive and taking care of business, because they basically are staying home because they have someone in the home that has COVID, and so they're going ahead and quarantining their children just in case, even though we don't have the contact tracing requirement this year. So they've taken that upon themselves to say we will keep them at home to see if they have any symptoms. We have some that are home because they have symptoms and they're going to go get them tested. We have others that when we call, we find out they got them tested, they are positive, and then we put them on our other form. So that's what the majority of it is. There was very little. What I was looking for is where is the fear factor? Are we having people that are staying home just because they simply are afraid to come to school? And overall, that was not the case. It is truly they are out because we just have this surge that's going through our community. And they're making very good choices staying home so that they don't continue to spread it out on the campuses. Now, they may be spreading it elsewhere, but they're thankfully not coming to spread it on the campuses. Okay. Then the number of COVID cases that we have, and I hope my numbers are right. I want to give a little caveat here. This is a moving target for us, and everyone is working diligently to try to keep up with this. But I will tell you, this is massive. We didn't experience this last year where we had this many people calling in and saying we're positive, or we have kids at the campus and then we're sending them home. So Mr. Bennett and the nurses have been and our attendance clerks and registrars and pretty much anyone in the front office has been working very hard to try to monitor this, because the calls will come in from all different directions. And so we've been trying to work on trying to make sure that we streamline it so that we get the numbers as accurate as possible. So I can tell, even as I dug from one spreadsheet to what's on the website and so forth, that we're still we're off a little, but it shouldn't be more than 2 to 3 students. So if you start comparing one sheet to another sheet, no, it may still be off, and we're going to put into place some more things to make sure that we get as accurate as possible. Sometimes what's happening is we're trying to put in our main sheet that just a few of us can see. We try to put the date that we were notified, the date they were tested, so we know how long it is before they have to stay out their 10 days to come back. Well, so sometimes the parents may not let us know. They may have kept the child out, but we may not know until, say, 2 days later to put it on our spreadsheet. So it kind of starts getting Blaze will tell you, she's the one that has to try to then take all that information and get the notices out to parents and get it on the website. So I just want to give that little caveat and applaud those that are doing this. And we're hoping and praying it gets better, but it's been a little overwhelming, to say the least. So the numbers that I had pulled when I looked at the official spreadsheet today, if I counted right, and knowing my math, sometimes that may not happen well, or my eyesight more than anything on that spreadsheet. So since August 16th, we've had 15 staff, and it looks like on this page it's 12. So 12 to 15 staff, depending on which of these numbers is right, hoping for 12, that tested positive for COVID since we started school August 16th. For students in all grade levels since we started, it is, looks like on my sheet I had 58. This one it was 62, and then so we're anywhere from 58 to 62. So we got to figure out where we're missing. And I know we found yesterday a couple of kids that had been listed twice. So sitting around 60, we'll just round it to 60 students since August 16th that have reported to us that they tested positive. I was asked the question about athletes, especially since they're traveling. Well, our high school are the only ones that are traveling. We've had 3 high school students that are athletes that tested positive, and 4 middle school students, but they're not traveling right now, I don't think, to anything right now. So that is our cases that we have. I tried to look on as many other websites as I could that are putting it up, and we're very comparable to other areas. This is not like we're having it, because what you have to do, sometimes people try to compare it apples to apples, but you have to go back and look at, maybe I should have put it in percentages, because you have to look at our enrollment and number of students have COVID versus, say, GP having their enrollment and how many cases they have, or Port Aransas much smaller. So you have to, when you compare that, sometimes that is important to remember. So any questions on that so far? Okay. All right. Like I said, I tried to come at this a lot of different directions. Mask mandate survey results. We feel, and I know you do too, it's very important to get feedback from our parents and from our staff that this decision will affect them directly, and I think it's important their voices are heard. So we actually had a pretty good response. Sometimes when you send surveys out, people just don't respond, but there was quite a response to this one. So with staff, we had 134 responses. 56% of the staff were in favor of a mask mandate. 26.9% said no, and 17.2% had no opinion. Families, we had 399 responses when I put this on this spreadsheet, and I think one more came in, so it was actually 400, but it didn't change the percentage. The percentage was 72.2% said yes, 21.8% said no, with 6% had no opinion. Then I wanted to look at what the regional district decisions are, because we work very closely as superintendents, especially those that are right in this area, because we know that we sometimes share students, families have some of the same thoughts and feelings. So thought it was important for you to know what's happening out there. So what I had, there is a CCISD did a mask mandate in place with an opt-out option. Basically, the students will be able to go by a certain date and get a form and have it filled out to say that we opt out to wear a mask. I shouldn't give my opinion, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I don't know how that's different from just doing what we're doing, but maybe it made them feel better. But anybody from CCISD listening, I'm sorry, I don't understand that, but maybe that just made people feel good. Mask mandates that have been done: Alice ISD, Ben Bolt, Kingsville, West Oso, Freer, and San Diego in our Region 2 area. You'll notice all of those are what we call, the superintendents on this side of the bridge say the districts on that side of the bridge. I find that there is quite a difference in the communities on the other side of the bridge compared to our communities on this side of the bridge. Not good or bad, it's just a different expectation, I guess you would say. And I think even fear factor, I saw that last year. There was a lot of fear that happened in some of these districts over in the in some of those other areas like Alice and Robstown, and they had some a lot of sickness and death. So I can understand that. Then on this side of the bridge, Gregory, Portland, they decided, they took it, they had a open forum, they did, I think, a survey, they went through the whole process, and I think this Monday, they basically decided to continue highly encouraging, and their reason for this, according to the statement given by the superintendent, was there was no way to enforce this, and time to police it, to have the administrators trying to police whether you have your mask on or not, and then what type of enforcement would there be when you're policing it. So that was their decision at this time, to continue to highly encourage it and support that, but not to put a mask mandate in place. A couple of other area districts, I told them if they would tell me what they're doing, I would leave them nameless. Because since they're still working with their boards and communities. So another area district said that there was no data to support it. They don't have enough numbers of cases. They've been very blessed in that they haven't seen a real surge yet, hopefully not at all. So they did not see a need to change anything. Another one, or three other districts on this side have no support from the majority of their board or their community in order to do any type of mask mandate. They want them to keep it as it is. And then one was meeting to discuss, and I don't think he minds because I asked him to let me know. It was our neighboring Ingleside, and they just decided no action. We are staying as is for right now. And they just met at 6:30. So I'm sure that's public knowledge, so I will share that. So that, because we knew we were having it right here at the same time, I said, you let me know what you're doing over there. So we try to have each other's backs and know, and we're so close in proximity. Walsh Legal Counsel was the next piece, and so as we kind of get into some of the more, the first part was what I know here, what I see here, trying to find what's our data showing us, and then reaching out to the powers that be that are much more knowledgeable than I am. The Walsh Legal Counsel, I spoke with our counsel, and my big question was, we were trying to work on a resolution in case you decided you wanted to do this, what that would look like. Needed to have that prepared for you. But my question back was, the big one that we're all asking as superintendents is, if you mandate this, how are we going to police it and so forth? So what can we do? What's our stance? And I asked that question. So she said, legally, a school district, and this was as of this morning, legally, a school district could approve a district mask mandate. However, the question should be, is it practical? And I typed up exactly what she was telling me because I didn't want to, mince her words. Her question was that she said the questions we should be asking are what consequences will be put in place by the board or administration for anyone not following the mandate. She said, are we saying we would terminate a staff member when it is so difficult to find staff now? Would that be a she said there's a district up in the North Texas area. That's what they're going to do. Place students in ISS or DAEP losing out on more learning. Require administrators and teachers to police the wearing of masks instead of focusing on academics. So those were some of her questions, and I have to echo that because that's why I asked the question, because those were some of my concerns is, are we going to try to feel like we're helping one area, but then we create others? We changed our dress code because we wanted to free our administrators up to be able to focus on academics. Could we possibly be putting this back on them where now they're not policing dress code, but they're going around policing mask? When I asked my administrators Tuesday about their feelings about this, every one of them basically felt the same way, that what was the hardest thing about this, it was the focus that had to be put on walking around being a police of mask and not about having school, academics, and that focus. So those are just things for consideration. Dr. Mobley, which is our SandPat health advisor for all of our meetings that we have, he has said that he believes it to be a 2 to 4 week spike. This should be week 3 when he said that. But I don't have the information of what he based that on. He has said that more children with the variant. He said there are more children with the variant, which we can very well see by our numbers, and that the ones with underlying conditions are the ones that are going to the hospital. So that's why that number is lower. And thank the good Lord that we don't have any that have gone to the hospital that I'm aware of. Mainly affecting unvaccinated adults. This surge he says is mainly, according to his data, affecting unvaccinated adults. I will tell you that here in our district, we have vaccinated and unvaccinated that have tested positive for COVID since school started. We have masked and unmasked people, adults and students that are testing positive. So I'm not going to, you can decide what that means on your own. He said late fall, we should have approval for all children to be vaccinated. And when I spoke to Christine Badia, she said, what did she tell me? I think she said within a month and, so I guess that's about, so it's sometimes this fall. She was saying, because when she said it, I was thinking like 1st of October, the way she said it. He's saying late fall, so I don't know if that means like November, December. So apparently they're working very diligently to get the vaccination approved for children younger than 12. So then I put some considerations just from all my conversations and sleepless nights of thinking about this and praying about this. And I'm big on pros and cons. And I just started this pros and cons. This is not exhaustive by any means, but just based off of the conversations with the administrative team, listening to teachers, staff members, and some parents, and then with everything that I've read. Pros, this could potentially slow the spread. Dr. Mobley says that, CDC says that it could potentially slow the spread. That's debatable, I guess. Pros, give sense of comfort to parents and teachers that are in agreement with the mask mandate. So the 72.2% of families and 56% of staff would have some sense of comfort in that. I will tell you that from walking around, I haven't done tally marks of it, but walking around to all campuses and even checking with other staff members that are walking around, this 56% yes staff for mask, my estimation was 60% before we did the survey, that about 60 to 65% of our staff are wearing masks. And that when it came back to 56%, I said that's about right. I think those that are wearing masks probably are the ones that said, yes, let's wear masks. So we do have a large group that are currently wearing masks. Students, not so much. Cons, it could do nothing to slow the spread. So it just depends on which side of the coin you look at. Does it help? Does it not help? I will tell you, I do know this variant is different. I don't need doctors to even tell me that. You can ask any of us that lived it last year. This is different. You can tell. You can tell it spreads quicker. It is. It's hard to, because we're doing some of the very same things we did last year, and it's not stopping it. People that have masks on are still getting it. People that have been doing everything they were supposed to do, they're still getting it. So it does have a different feel, a different look, but just take that for what it's worth. Another con that we believe it could cause morale to go down for staff and students that have issues with mask mandates. You heard one of our staff members mention that, and I think there's quite a few that echo that. Even some that really, I think, kind of wonder if the mask might help, but then they look at the flip side of it and go, but what harm could it do? For example, potentially cause emotional, mental stressors. We're trying to deal with the emotional fallout from all that happened last year, and we're trying to have school as normal as possible. And so that is a concern, is that it will cause that emotional, mental stress again, impede the progress toward having a normal school setting that was mentioned earlier. We're trying to make this as normal as possible, as safe as possible, but still have it. And we can already tell the kids. We had high school kids that were lined up at the door on the first day of school before they opened the building. They were excited to come back. They want to be back. They want to try to find normalcy. And so that's something to have to consider too. Where does all this fit into that? It is going to be difficult to police and enforce. The difference from this year to last year is last year it was mandated across the whole state. Everyone had to do it. No matter where you were out in public, you had to wear a mask. Now we would be saying you will be wearing it in the buildings or on our property, but once you leave, there's no enforcement anywhere else or expectation. So that's the difference in us being able to police it or mandate it, because we as a district will have to have some kind of oomph to it. Otherwise, it's just something in writing that my administrators are spending all their time trying to get people to put masks on. So that does concern me. Younger students do not keep clean and lose. Having to help over at the Falk Elementary School, we have all seen that. Sometimes the masks that the younger children that are wearing them give me concern that how clean that really is for the younger ones. And I won't go into details, but if you'd like to see, come and help us at lunch tomorrow at 11, and you'll and them taking the mask off and hitting each other side the heads and sharing their mask. And yes, so it's a whole different little world there when you start talking about. But I do want to say here, and I know I'm kind of putting some of my personal thoughts in here, and I'm trying not to. I'm trying to really give you thoughts from everything. But I want you to know that we're going to do whatever we're told to do. If y'all mandate this, I mean, we're gonna make it happen. But I just wanted to bring these things to you so you can consider this from all sides. Questions that we have been asked: do we have the right to mandate masks for families or individuals that choose to not wear one, which was brought up tonight? Is there enough scientific research or data to help us make a decision about implementing a mask mandate? And our protocols for my final piece of what we have in place and what we're about to put in place, which might help you in your decision making. We continue to do deep cleaning of all areas during the day and each evening, just as we did last year and even at a higher level. We highly encourage masks to be worn by all, with approximately 60% of our staff wearing one now, but limited students. We have been providing shot clinics and will continue to do so. We provide masks to anyone that needs one, whether it's on the bus or wherever they need them. We've ordered more, and they all, I think, just came in today. And we just today received our rapid test. So beginning on Monday, we will be doing rapid testing, have it available for all students and staff. So we will be able to, at a moment's notice, to be able to, that can be a huge mitigation piece, that if you're not feeling well or you have concerns, we could test you and we can find out and then have you removed from being around others. So we're feeling hopeful, and I know our director of nursing mentioned that, hopeful that this will be a key piece to turning this thing around for us, so that we can indicate who is symptomatic or asymptomatic, that they're positive, and then we can get them removed from the situation and hopefully get this surge to end. So, with all that said, like I said, I felt my job tonight was to bring you all this information, and so that then you can work together to make the decision you feel is best for the district. As I said, we're here, we're going to make happen whatever needs to happen, and but that's the information I have for you. And I know that was a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. So I'm kind of do this a little differently. I mean, like I said earlier, we all have our opinions or our views, and just to keep this orderly, I'm going to start on that side with Miss Olivia. You've listened to the presentation. Any questions you have for Ms. Cook?
Yes. From our deep cleaning protocols, I have a couple questions actually.
Okay.
What are we doing in between class changes, as one class leaves out and the next group comes into a classroom? What is our protocol on that currently?
Do you want to speak to that, Mr. Bennett, and all the?
I mean, the protocol is
Wayne,
there to-
Wayne, we're on video. If you'll come up to the mic, please.
Last year we had it in place where they were, like, it was part of the protocol to wipe down between each and every class. We've had some teachers request, and on request, we are making sure that they have spray bottles and wipe down. And I'm not sure to what extent the high school or some of those are doing, but I know at, was it Falk? Falk has requested some spray bottles, and we're making sure they get them if they can. The hand wipes and stuff, they just go through them too fast, but.
Okay. That's
Should I
good.
interject on the high school level, just to let you know what we are doing? Okay. And like you said, we are picking back because we're piggybacking with what we were doing last year. This year, it's completely up to the students if they want to do that. We are not doing that as staff. But we do have available the disinfectant and the wipes if they would choose to like to wipe down their area.
Okay.
And that's how we're doing it at the high school at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, at this time.
Perfect. And my other question was, of these responses, we had 399 from families. What is that representation of our actual families? What I mean by that is surveys sent out versus surveys received.
So that's, is that 1/3 of our,
A little over a third.
A
We have
little
about
over a third?
900 families.
Okay.
A little over a third.
Okay, perfect. I was just trying to put the percentages
Yeah.
to the true number of responses that we got.
and that's still low, but that's higher than we normally get to a
Okay.
survey.
Perfect. Those are the only questions that I have.
Ms. Juanice?
Okay, and I appreciate the work that, that all people, that everyone it took to bring this to us. We know this is a moving target right now, and there are so many unknowns. But at the same time, I believe that our community has an expectation that when their child or children come to school, that we're going to do everything we can to keep them safe. And I know we're trying to find a balance here. But to me, safety comes first. And I know there's difference of opinions, different perspectives, different rationale. But I hope at the end of this process, at the end of the day, that whether you're for the mask or not for the mask, that everyone's going to do their part, do their best to not only protect themselves, but to protect those that they are in the same environment with. So it's a choice to wear the mask or not. It's a choice whether to wear the mask outside of school so that you're not a carrier when you come to work or when that student comes to work. Comes to school to learn. I have a couple of, I did some percentages. I'm looking at this from two prongs. Yes, we look at enrollment and we look at the number of cases, but as a district, we also have to look at the absenteeism. Because right now, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no state reprieve or relief right now on our attendance-based funding, correct? So when our numbers are lower, that's less funding that we get, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to keep that in mind too. Because however long this goes, and however long people keep their kids out of school, and however long those families who are impacted by COVID because someone in the family has it or they're symptomatic and they're not here, that's going to catch up with us. Yes, academically first, and second, financially. When we look at the percentages, and we're talking numbers, the other balance that I think we're facing is, what's the magic number before a school district acts? How many people is it going to take to be out before we do something? What's the magic number of absenteeism that we're willing to lose state funding before we act? Right now, based on the numbers as of today, comparing our total enrollment of 1,667 to 62 cases, we're already at 3.7%. So 3.7% of our student attendance are out due to COVID. 5% of our staff is out because of COVID. Looking at the 15 number of staff cases to approximately 300 count of employees. When we look at just the students, breakdown at Falk, it's 3.6 of students that are in attendance. At Charlie Marshall, it's 2.8% At Blunt, it's at 2.9 or 3%. At the high school, it's at 4.4%. And we see the numbers increasing every day. We may have some days where there's not an increase, but we definitely know the numbers are not decreasing. So we need to continue to keep this in the forefront, whether personal beliefs are wear a mask in public or not. We have a responsibility as a district. I know that over time, socially, we've had to make decisions and policies over things that are not illegal. It's not illegal to smoke cigarettes, but organizations and school districts all have non-smoking policies, or at least restrictions and limitations. So I want us to be diligent about this. I don't want us to get complacent about this. I don't want us to put our personal feelings when we're talking about public domain. What you do at home, it is your business. But when you come out into the public, it's all of our business. That is why I make the personal choice to wear the mask. I'm not sick, but I interact with a lot of people in public, and I certainly, don't want to be a carrier, even if I'm not the one feeling symptoms. And so everyone has to make that choice. But as a body, a board, we have a responsibility to keep the district moving, to keep it operational, and number one, the academic success of our students. If they're not here, if there's no alternative, then yes, they're going to get further behind. Our district in particular was behind even before COVID because of Hurricane Harvey. So we're already trying to bring our students, catch them back up due to Harvey. Now we're having to do it because of COVID. And so we need to mitigate. We need to try to counterpunch the negative things that are happening and the things that are holding back our students. My other concern is that we did the survey. We got better response than we have on other surveys. The majority of families want us to do something. At least half of the staff wants us to do something. So I want us and our community to keep that in mind, that it is our intention to be responsible. And yes, we're trying to find that balance. But because there's so many options right now, and with all the legal and political stuff that's going on, whatever decision we make, or if we make no decision, it's going to make somebody unhappy. But safety first. Academic success is a priority. So if we don't have a reprieve or relief right now on attendance-based funding, how much time are we willing to tolerate that as a district? My concern is that if we do not act at this time, what backup plan do we have if we lose more and more teachers out of the classroom because they have to quarantine? What is the condition of our substitution pool? Do we have enough substitutes to back up those teachers that have to be out? To the staff who are carrying their personal preferences that are contrary to the CDC guidance or guidelines, I hope we understand that if we have a teacher who is out, it impacts more than just that teacher. It impacts that classroom. And it's calling for a coworker or someone else in the district to cover that. So as we move forward in these conversations, in decisions that we make or that we table or defer, we need to keep in mind how much and how long are we willing to go before we act? I also offer that if there's any consideration that the board wants to make, that we can even put a future effective date on it. Because there's so much happening right now, even just today, in the last 24 hours, for us to get these opinions, even after 5 o'clock, and just this evening. Because we know that it's changing so rapidly. You can make a decision today, and by Monday, something else has happened through the courts or the state or what have you. So this is not our one and only discussion.
This is one of many.
This is going, yes, and that's my point. I don't want the public or employees to think that, we're just going to look at this and that's it. Because right now, folks, this is a snapshot in time. It's going to change. That's a given. We just don't know how much and for how long. So we have to be in this, and we have to stay at it and be in this together. And it's going to take all of us coming to some compromise, because it can't be all one person's way or all another person's way. We've got to find that common ground. What will it take for us to be our best as a district, to keep our students safe so they can continue learning and they can rebuild academically? You've answered several of my questions already, other than whether it's administration, the board, or collectively. If we don't act, what is our backup plan? And strategically, at what magic number are we going to take whatever steps we need to take? Is it 5%, 10%, 20% of our students are out? Because we don't know when this is going to end, and before it ends, how much worse it's going to get before it gets better. And on the mask, I know that's the primary conversation right now, is the mask. But folks, the mask is a factor of prevention and trying to get a handle on this. You've got the mask, you've got social distancing, you've got cleaning protocols. We could even do limitations and restrictions, on gatherings. There's several things we can do. The mask alone in and of itself doesn't cure or prevent COVID. Just like cleaning alone is not going to do it. It takes a concerted effort of multiple things happening at the same time. And so that too, I think we need to take that into consideration, that we have to stay on task with all those things that we need to do to stay as safe as possible so that our children can continue learning in the best environment possible that we can provide them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being passionate. We're all passionate in here.
I just got a couple questions. I think you mentioned before that the contact tracing, we're not doing any contact tracing. So when a kid tests positive, we're just sitting on a notification that like 4 kids at AC Blunt tested positive, that's it. We're not letting the people know, like in the classroom, that Johnny Smith tested positive in Mrs. Smith's classroom.
You could never tell
Well, I know,
who it was.
but you can put like a classroom for teacher that
The
so
teachers
that way
will-
people know that kid in the classroom tested positive. I should start watching my kid. We're not doing anything, we can't do anything like that or not.
What we are doing, there is no contact tracing that's done this year, but what we are doing is at the elementary campuses, whatever classroom they're in, that classroom, those parents are getting notification that there was a positive case in their classroom, their cohort that they travel with all day. And at the high school level, we were attempting to do it by class, but that is very problematic because of all the moving parts and especially at high school. So we just started doing it to the entire campus so that they know on the campus there was an individual or individuals. The coaches are contacting if they're athletes because they are much, in close contact with all the activities they do. They're contacting those children separately.
Yeah, and I guess my only concern is the fact, that like you alluded to before, that what do you do with a kid that refuses to wear the mask because there's not a mandate other than we're just saying it. He comes to school without the mask. What are you going to do with him? You're going to send him back home. You're going to suspend him for a day. Are you going to put him in ISS for a day? Are you going to put him in DAP? He's still not going to wear the mask there. So, that's a concern I have. If we do a mask mandate, we don't have any power, and it's going to put a lot more on the teachers and administrators at the campus who are now trying to struggle to try to mitigate what happened last year with all the stuff for COVID. And now we're going to put them back in the same role where they're going to spend, half a day just with a mask. That's a big concern from my perspective. And the other thing, I think you said that by Monday or Tuesday they're going to decide that all these things. So again, any decision we make today, if we decide today what we're going to decide, by Monday it may change. So we're going to be bouncing kids back and forth. We're going to say, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Well, that to me, it's going to be kind of hard for them, as far as that goes. But again, I kind of follow Ms. Butler. I have concerns about, if we do this. But again, my philosophy is the safety of all kids, okay? And I think this is a good idea. So wearing a mask protects you, it protects others. Because if not, why would they wear them in a hospital? If you go to a hospital and there's somebody there that's sick and has a infectious disease, usually they put on a mask before they go in the room. There's a reason why. That's just my own personal feeling. But again, that's just some comments I had about it and concerns. My opinion is we should wait and see. For at least because we don't want to bounce these kids around and make a decision that next week, 2 days from now, we're not going to be able to enforce. So wait for the political, I guess the courts to decide, what kind of rules they're going to come up with, what we legally can do and can't do, and then we'll make a decision based upon what facts we have.
Well, you brought up that point about that it might change by Monday. So we can make a decision today. I myself am for the mask mandate. It's like Ms. Cook, when this first started, she almost came to tears because she had parents come in and tell her, what are you going to do about my kid? How are you going to take care of my child? I've had calls, my wife will tell you, more than people we have here today against it. I've had more for it. I've had people tell me they'll take their kids out and put them in homeschooling. They expect us to do the right thing. They said, look, these are our kids. I don't want my kid to go contract something and bring it to my smaller kid. I got another child in my house of a younger age. And if you check this, you'll see that this variance is actually affecting more younger people than the one prior. And at our job site, we had a total of 58 people that got infected. I stay away from everybody. I wear a mask all day long in the heat. I don't care. I wear a mask. I carry disinfectant in my pocket all the time. 2 of us run the crane, so when I get in that crane, I spray it, and I disinfect my hand before I touch it, 'cause I don't know where he's been. You know, he's one of those don't believe in wearing a mask. Well, they mandated it, didn't actually enforce it, but mandated that we start wearing a mask. 2 weeks ago, they did the mask deal. And they made us, we stay apart from everyone, 6 foot. When we have our meetings, we don't do it in our meeting room anymore. We do it in a shop. And it's, you stay apart. Since that day, we've had 3 people. But the sad thing about that, those 3 people, 2 of them died. And one being a very good friend of mine. And one being a very good friend of mine's son. Very young kid. I mean, sometimes we look at it and we say, we don't want to do this or we want to do this. But sometimes it hits so close to home, you'll understand what we're trying to say. And I'm like Ms. Butler. I believe in safety first, and I believe in safety of our kids first. So if we do any decisions today, we leave it as it is. Come Monday, whatever comes in, it'll be enforced. If it's a mask mandate, come Monday, it'll be enforced. We make the decision today. If not, we don't make that decision today about wearing the mask. But if it is enforced on Monday, it needs to be brought up. It needs to be voted today and say, okay, it will happen. That's what they asked for.
Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? One more time, we'll make one more round and then we'll put it to a vote.
I do have something. I know you're talking about our protocol of what's our number and things like that. One of the schools that everybody obviously has been talking about with the mask mandates is the West Oso ISD, who immediately was like, we're masking it up. But they also did have a protocol. They did have something that's readily available on their website of, if X amount of students have COVID, we'll shut the district down or we'll close this school for X amount of days. We have not discussed a plan of that nature, but I do think that it is important to know those things, to be proactive, not reactive, and have a plan in place, whether we decide on a mask or not. Like you said, there are many, many facets that come into this, and I do agree that we should be ready to go with anything. That's our job. That's all of our job, and the district's job is to be able to move and shake and get things done. So I think that is something we should definitely be considering and, maybe talking about and planning for, just to go ahead and to put the parents at ease too, because Ms. Juanice is not the only person asking what our limit is of how many cases that we would accept and, when we would shut down or when we would send kids home or when we would start contract tracing or any of those things. So I think that those are conversations we should probably have sooner than later. With the mask mandate, with the rules that we got from, oh my goodness, Walsh. Sorry, we had a lot of paperwork here. So with that, if we enforce something today, and this expires on Sunday, would that mean that the kids came to school if they said we couldn't do this, would that mean that we sent them to school just one day with it mandatory at that point? And then not mandatory?
The answer to your question, as long as our board policy is in place, it'll be followed. If the courts come out with the decision on Monday, the Supreme Court comes up with the decision and it invalidates what we've done, then we would have to legally meet and rescind what we've passed.
Okay.
So as Mr. Flores was saying, if we choose to go that route, we'll have it in place. The Supreme Court's going to trump everything once they make their decision. We don't know, it could be Monday, or it could be as
a
Walsh and
month.
Gallegos has said, in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Or it could be 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I mean,
Right.
who knows when it comes to legal proceedings.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
And just clarification, the window closing, this is just the window is for conversations like this and for school boards to take action. Once that window closes, school districts can't take any further action?
That's my understanding,
From-
but don't,
from what this-
don't
yeah,
quote.
the
Now,
opinion
you
here?
had TEA's language in your opening statement. It said, I think they just said, they would not enforce this time. Did it say until the Supreme Court, 'cause I didn't bring that. Cause I know
I just wanna make
TA
sure I'm-
has,
Make
me dig
they
through
will
my
not
papers.
enforce, you
Interpreting
know,
that correctly or not?
I'm sorry.
I said, I just want to make sure if I'm interpreting that correctly or not about the window of time right now for Sunday's
Well, there's-
expiration date and Monday's
Well,
expiration date.
because TEA there's no enforcement because there was this, temporary injunction and all this, but once those are gone, according to this article, once those expire, then, cause it says while you have a TRO or a TI, then schools are free to require or not require mask. But the paragraph prior talks about that they're about to expire.
Right.
So the way I understood it from my conversation with the attorney was that you can, as long as those are in place, districts have that opportunity. But when they expire, which looks like it's going to be Sunday and then September 2nd, then the way I understand is while they're in place, you can do it. When they're not, therefore you cannot, would be the way to read that.
And the thing to add to that is, is in legal proceeding, what lawyers do at the courthouse. As soon as one expires, they're at the courthouse filing their paperwork and starting the next one. So, I mean, it could end Sunday and it could be another filing
Yeah.
Sunday night.
Yeah, and I think they even
Granted.
said that at the end, that is, I think is exactly what you just said. Yeah, I think he said, it said, we expect some decisions this weekend, and we will likely receive some decision from the Texas Supreme Court shortly thereafter. And then it talks about the landscape is continuing to change, could change the legal landscape depending on, the TROs that will be issued. So it's just, we're kind of it's because it's just bubbling up right now, and we're sitting here getting information at the last minute, and I'm feeling very uncomfortable trying to give you legal advice based off, because that's not my area of expertise, but I'm trying to give you as much as I understand at this time.
I did have one additional question regarding, has there been any discussion or feedback from other superintendents or from council regarding screenings?
Screenings, I'm sorry.
Screenings, yes, whether it's the temperature readings or things of that nature for people coming into,
I
Still
don't believe
district.
we have any districts that are continuing to do that,
okay,
no.
so everybody has stopped that.
Because I
after-
don't think CDC even has that as part of their guidelines any longer. That's, we try to follow the CDC recommended guidelines as much as we can. And of course, one of theirs is encouraging masks, but then our governor has, so that's where that got messy, so.
Right, and because of that, that's why I'm looking for another alternative, is maybe the screenings for staff or something. I'm just trying to think out of the box here instead of just sitting and waiting, watching the numbers go up. You know, that
Well-
we develop a plan, an action plan.
Well, that's why we're saying the testing that we'll be doing beginning on Monday, we'll be able to begin the mitigation of that, to be able to test people to know whether they're positive or not. Since school started, we've been trying to pivot already, like, for example, at Falk Elementary, and trying to have normalcy. We were having the students all go back to the cafeteria, but after, 2 days of that, we were like, we have too many students that are in that cafeteria with those that even had their mask on, mask down, with their eating their lunch. So we totally revamped that, and have basically doing it the way we did last year, where some kids are in there where they can spread out, then others we take back to their classroom where they can spread out, because the cafeteria is not large enough on that campus to be able to have any type of social distancing. So everything that we've tried to, try to look at what could potentially help us mitigate this, we've been trying to do that. And it sounds like some of our cleaning protocols we need to revisit, and make sure that we're doing everything we can there.
On the testing that will start on Monday, the 30th, tell us a little bit more about that. Is that I voluntarily or I requested, or is it something that everyone's going to go through at this snapshot in time?
No, it's
What's
not
that
gonna
gonna
be
look
like we'll, funnel everybody through and testing. That's not the way we currently have it set up. I'm not sure any districts are doing that right now. Just one, because you figure we have, so you look at these students that are out. So let's just use Falk, because Falk's our kind of hot spot right now. So today we had 72 absent. So let's say more than likely 60 of those, if not 72, are out because they've been in contact with someone, they have a symptom, there's, something has caused them to decide, I'm going to stay at home to see what's happening with my child. Then those students would have the parents would be able to contact us and schedule in to come and then we're going to work on that tomorrow, how this is all going to play out, because this is going to be massive to try to do this. And then they would be able to come and be tested, and in 15 minutes they would know your child is positive. Here's what you need to do. Your child's not positive. If you feel comfortable, they can go back to class. So we could start kind of making, so instead of them sitting at home, maybe having allergy symptoms from the Saharan dust,
Right.
we could find out that you're really okay. You can go on back to the classroom. We can start the learning process again.
Okay.
That relieves the parents and the students. Staff, same thing. Staff's not feeling well. And we've currently been doing that anyway, because we had a few tests that we received from another location. And so that's how we found several staff members that got it. They felt fine that evening. They went home that night. Next morning, they didn't feel good. They drove up in their car. Nurse went out. They did the test. You're positive. Get yourself back home. You weren't. I think we had a few. They weren't positive. They knew that they felt that it was something else that was going on. So
Okay.
it gives more information for people to make informed decisions, so that instead of just staying out and making some assumptions, they'll have readily available to do that. But at this time, just trying to handle that is going to, I'm a little concerned about us being able to do all that, but we're going to figure out a way to make it happen. And but to add in that now we're going to just randomly test people, I don't foresee us being able to do that right now, just because of manpower and hours in the day.
Well, there is a need for testing, and on this side of the bridge, because a year ago there were a lot more, pharmacies and other locations doing testing when somebody didn't feel well.
Right.
And so several of those sites are not currently doing so.
Right.
So yes, if we have students that are sitting out because their parents can't find a place to test them,
Exactly.
or
It'll be a convenience for them.
yes,
There
and
will be a
that's that's an
criteria.
answer, one way or the other.
Yes, and there
they
will be
can
a
move on.
criteria
Okay.
so that you just, because we have to have something in place. That's what we're going to set up tomorrow. What will be the criteria? You have
Okay.
this. Yes, we need to test you. It won't be
Okay.
just, I want to just be tested to be tested.
So like a checklist of,
Yes.
okay, okay.
And we're hopeful that adding that layer, along with other things we're going to continue to look at and work on, that we can begin to see this turnaround.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's kind of what I tell the staff all the time, let's control what we can control. We're trying to find ways to get out in front of it and think about what seems to be the issues that we're seeing from this, and how can we help it, hopefully.
Well, that's good, because we're in pre-flu. I mean, I don't know when you'll start to see that, just the regular flu, So there could be some confusion. Right now, we've got the
Yes.
Sahara dust with the COVID.
Well, and on that note, Dr. Mobley had said there are some RSV cases and already flu cases that they're beginning to see. So yes, there is going to be some of that. What do you really have, and where does that data go?
Okay, all right.
Anybody else have any other questions? All right, I guess it's my turn. But I guess I want to touch a little bit on what Olivia said, and I think it's a great idea that maybe we can, if we all agree, is having that threshold number of when do we close the campus down? What is that number when we reach 50 students, 75 students, 100 students? Will our protocol be to close that campus down for whether a major facility, disinfecting, cleaning for 2 days or 3 days or whatever? I think that would probably be prudent for us to start working on something like that if everybody else agrees with having a protocol like that.
I'll more than agree. I will ask for a workshop when it can be scheduled for us to develop a plan, an action plan, and
Well, and we can do that, but I think in fairness and respect to administration, to give them the direction to do that
Okay.
and bring us that sample plan and
Okay.
have it in place, and then let us look at what they've developed and then tweak it, or it may be, they may hit a home run on it, and we just stamp our stamp of approval on it.
I like home runs.
I like them too.
not like home runs.
I think just from a standpoint of time,
Mhm.
that's gonna be the fastest way to get to where we wanna get without
Okay.
setting a workshop and then them drafting something, then meeting again.
Okay.
And going
Yeah.
through that process, but that's something that
Okay.
they can work towards.
Yes,
As
definitely.
long as that's the
Definitely.
end, the outcome,
Okay.
whatever's the
Yes.
best.
Well, and we've
way
already
to
been
maneuver that.
trying to have some of those conversations about, okay, looking at these numbers, what's best? How do you close the campus? And then what happens to all those kids? Where are those kids' families going to take those children? And so we've been having those discussions already about what's the best course of action for these very unprecedented numbers.
Okay.
So more to the point, after listening to everyone, I really am in agreement with Ms. Butler. I believe she's on point on safety. One of the things that I've struggled with is the balance that we talked about earlier. Because there's no doubt if we move to a mask mandate that it is gonna recreate a lot more work for our staff and our administrators. I mean, that's just a given. But I have all the confidence and faith in our staff to find the solutions to those things and make it work. Anytime that we've had difficult decisions like that, they've been troopers and gone out and executed what we've asked them to do. So I have no doubt that'll be done if that's the route that we want to go. I'm concerned also with the loss of funding from state and, the academic costs it's going to cost our students. I mean, our numbers are increasing on absences on that. And like you said, mask is just one component of what it's going to take for us to keep our students safe. Balancing that with the survey, I mean, we talk all the time, we want to know what our families are thinking. And we have a survey out, and as long as I've been here, this 399 responses is the most that we've ever received in a survey. So we have a survey here, and we have 72% of our parents saying yes. And over half or close to 60% of our staff saying yes also. I mean, to discount their responses of what they want to see done in our district, I think is disrespectful of what we've asked them to do from that standpoint. I don't believe the time is to wait. I think the time is to take action now. Our decision, if it's goes through the court system and it's in the favor of the governor, then this will be Trump. This decision will be null and void. I definitely feel the feeling. I have a child at home that's bouncing back and forth too. So it affects close at home for me to say you're going to wear a mask or you're not going to wear a mask. I mean, but we volunteer for these positions to make these tough decisions, and that's what we're posed with tonight. Again, my decision is not to wait. We do have a resolution in front of us, but in the essence of time, there's no reason to go through the resolution if the consensus of the board, the majority of this board, is not to want to take action tonight. So we're not taking a poll or a vote, but I would like to know, do we want to move forward with this resolution?
Yeah, well, I'll start out. Yeah. I mean, I have no problem. We need to make a decision, and we need to move forward with it. So we make a decision tonight and move forward with how we want to do this and that. So we're here. Let's get it
Seeing a
done.
yes from Mr. Flores, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Molinak.
Oh, he's all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's look at the resolution. how long y'all have had a chance to read through that, so I'm gonna give y'all several minutes to read through that.
Okay, thank you.
You know what I'll do? What I'll do officially is let's take a 10-minute recess for you guys to read that. If anybody needs to go to the bathroom or stretch your legs or whatever you like to do. And we'll reconvene at 8:49. That'll be kind of
Ask about those who are offering it as a dress code item.
Okay, let the record reflect the time is now 8:50. The board has reconvened after a brief break. As for our previous discussion, you do have the resolution in front of you. And I'll just open it up. On my left side, does anybody have any corrections or any concerns, anything that's listed? Whoever wants to go first.
I just got one question on the suggested language for the resolution. Instead of next 30 days beginning, I think it would be better, because I'm looking at 30 days, if we implement this, then we'd have to have another meeting to overrule it before our scheduled board meeting, which would be like 4 or 5 days later after that for the first, so we put it on each board meeting or something like that. At each board meeting, we'll review the status and either keep it, keep the resolution, active or overrule it and disregard it and go back to normal operations. So, but that would make better sense to me than every 30 days. So at least we're having a meeting, we'll have to have a special meeting just to cover that.
I like that.
And also, Ms. Cook, we had a conversation, I think last month sometime, about the federal guidance on buses being public transportation versus a mandate that the federal government come out with what was contrary to what the governor come out with, which one since the buses are considered kind of a public transportation almost.
And they're not, though, buses, because they're part of the school
Districts.
system. Yeah, so
Okay.
they're not, and they don't fall into that federal guideline.
All right.
Anybody else?
So what I heard you say, I was just writing down, you might put something on that piece, like,
To be
you know,
reviewed at each board.
with
board meeting.
review each regularly scheduled board meeting.
Yes,
How about
ma'am.
something like that? With
Yes, ma'am.
review each regularly scheduled board meeting, so we can, because we'll need to retype this so that when the signatures are put on it, we have exactly what you said. I just want to make sure I have it right.
Are you finished, Mr. Mullins?
Yes.
On page 1, the second to last whereas before the bulleted ones, the one that talks about increased cases of COVID-19, which will negatively affect, I would like to suggest that we add the negative effect of impact or loss of attendance-based funding that is used to operate or fund the district.
So, which will negatively affect the ability of all students to participate in face-to-face learning, which in turn is vital to student academic process and social emotional well-being. I think that goes with that piece. And then, and what did you say?
As well as negatively affecting operating funds for the district due to reduced or loss of attendance-based funding, something along those lines.
How about as well as negatively affecting operating funds due to low attendance ratings? Low attendance rates.
Okay, yes, whatever the language
Yeah.
is there that the state has. Okay. Then on page,
Hold on one second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just want to make sure, because when I pass this motion, I gotta know exactly what we're passing, and we have to have it written down, so.
I'm sorry.
You want to read that to me, Ms. Cook?
And so at the, after well-being, and as well as negatively affecting operating funds due to low attendance rates.
Okay. Everybody have that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Then on page 2, I'd like to add another, or suggest another bullet. As part of our resolution, that we would also encourage testing for individuals who experience COVID symptoms. And that goes along with our efforts of providing the testing.
Encourage testing for individuals with
Whether it's student or staff, or maybe we need to say that,
for students
and employees.
and staff.
Not just
Students and staff with, how did you say it?
COVID-related symptoms or COVID symptoms. I don't know how the CDC has got it
COVID
worded.
symptoms.
Got to bring that with me.
Everybody get that? Okay.
Then also on page 2, second to last whereas statement, where the ISD intends to operate schools safely and with appropriate safety measures and mitigation techniques in place to, 1, reduce the incidence of on-campus transmission, and 2, to reduce or avoid delays in students' academic success.
Reduce and avoid, or to,
You lost me on this.
Delays in student academic success. So it's right here on this one.
Down here. Right here.
Yeah, on page 2.
Second to last whereas statement on page 2.
Right here. You want to put it there again?
That our mitigating efforts are going to do 2 things. Hopefully reduce incidents on campus, and hopefully to hopefully reduce or avoid delays in our students' academic success.
See right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right there.
Mhm.
and reduce or avoid delays in academic success.
Reduce and/or avoid delays in academic success, or students' academic success.
Or delay.
You want student academic success or just academic success?
I think it's understood.
Yes.
Okay.
And reduce or avoid delays in academic success.
Then on page 3, if we're ready. I'd like to suggest a 4th bullet. We have 3 listed. That the Board of Trustees requests that the administration provide an action plan. I mean, it may need some help on this wording here. At certain intervals, if the number of COVID cases increase. So, when we're talking about what's the magic number before we take a step or take any action, do we need to mitigate? If it's something that's occurring, we notice that it's happening in one grade level or it's happening in one particular class.
So,
At the point where we have to restrict a campus or close a campus. That's where I was going with that.
No, and I think that's a great point, but I don't know that we need to include it in the resolution, because we've directed the administration to bring that information.
But
to
this
us.
is about your mass mandate.
This is about the mass mandate.
This is not about this, yeah, that's part of your mitigation, but I mean, but this, yeah.
I think we can.
Or maybe it goes
accomplish
over
that.
here. Maybe it goes over here under our bullets of efforts. Let's see here.
I think we can accomplish that
Okay.
by directing the administration to do what we've asked them to do, and then hold them accountable to make sure they report that back to us as an agenda item, and I can do that. Make sure that Kara brings that
Okay.
information back to us for discussion
Okay,
on that. Would that work?
as an agenda, yes, I want it done formally.
Okay.
Thank you. And the other one I had was number 2, which looks like we're already addressing, where it says on APIC versus inside or in. But on number 2, and we can discuss this as a board, if it's easier to swallow, to add an effective date of September 1. Given
I need
that,
an effective date because I need to know, I can't start it tomorrow. I
Right.
mean,
No, right.
So
So that's what I'm
I
saying.
need an effective
Yeah,
date.
adding an
we'll give you-
effective
we'll give-
date so that even though, if this were to pass tonight, that the expectation isn't that all of this, we can flip a switch and it's going to start the following day, following business
Because
day.
I have to have time to get the word out to everyone.
Right.
So whether it's the first, the following Monday, after that, first Monday of September, some effective date.
Well, I
The
think
10th or the
she's got-
15th.
That's the resolution we passed right there, and that's why I got that in there.
But this is saying for how many days it'll be in place.
Yeah, but it's
But
effective,
it's
beginning
beginning.
August the 30th.
Right, but that's Monday, and we know that
Yeah, but-
things are gonna change Sunday night and Monday. And so I'm
Yeah.
saying, change that date.
I don't know that you need to change that date, because that's the date that we're projecting for it to start. If something trumps us, we're gonna have to request a special meeting to come in here and to reverse what the board has passed.
Yeah, because,
But is that enough time? Because really, we just have Friday before Monday.
yeah, you got Friday and the weekend.
But is that
I mean,
realistically
How many
enough
days do
time?
you need to disseminate the information to?
Well, I mean, we'll start putting it out tomorrow morning and hopefully, I mean, we'll do messengers and we'll try our best to make sure everybody knows by Monday, if that's what you so wish, so.
I would just like to give, if this passes, to give a few days for word to get out so that it's not chaotic on, well, oh, I didn't get the word, I didn't know, and then you've got even more policing and consuming more administrative
Well, then you
time.
can move it to Wednesday.
And Wednesday's the 1st, that's why I was
Yeah,
suggesting.
and I appreciate that because that does give me time then to meet with the admin team because
Sure.
we're going to have to work on what this is going to look like. Because
Sure.
once y'all decide this, then the real work begins. I mean, there's, you know, as Mr. Galvan had said, I mean, we'll make it happen, but I will need some time for us to figure out how we're going to do this, what that's going to look like.
Okay, so we'll use September 1st.
So are y'all looking at the last one to do wearing of mask indoors?
So-
Or
so
what,
when-
what did y'all decide there?
I'd like to talk
One thing I
about
want
that.
to add to this, and I think it's very important, very key, is the athletic piece.
I put a star at the bottom, that last whereas on page 2 for extracurricular activities.
Right.
Yeah, I put a star
Because
there too.
you have to appreciate what our coaches and our staffs are going through running the athletics program. So, I mean, and as far as being outdoors and the whole bit, I think what we're trying to accomplish is to make sure that it's being done in the buildings. When you get to the athletic piece, it's gonna be very hard for our coaches to, whether they're practicing or working out, for our athletes to be wearing these masks. I mean, I think one of the wording we need to look at as far as, in there is athletic competition, excluding that portion of it, which will allow, on the football side and anything that they're doing outside or in the weight room, for them to be able to not have this restriction on them. And then I'm open for comments on anybody on that side of it.
So that would also be the gym for volleyball, basketball.
You got an indoor
'Cause that's an indoor.
facility. That's up to how you guys want to police that, or how we want it.
May I ask Blaine a question real quick that might help? Because I don't remember. Last year when we had the mask mandate, didn't we have, did we do anything? Was there a point where like in the gym, playing, where was that at some point we had that stipulation?
Athletes, while they were actively participating, was how they.
Athletes.
Actively
But
participating.
what about our students that are doing activities in the gym like Falk, Charlie Marshall? Were we still,
That was curriculum.
yeah, but we still had them wearing masks during all of their
With the
activities?
mask mandate, they said, you know, widen out 10 feet if you were gonna be breathing harder or yelling or anything like that.
And they didn't have to have a mask on then, if they were 10
I don't
feet
believe they
apart
had
or
to
something?
have-
Because I thought, yeah, because that was the other thing. It's like the little ones when they're running and playing and, you know, outside on the playground. Well, I guess if you're doing it indoors, but like even in the gym when they're doing, just things for you to think about. I mean, that's kind of direction I have to have.
What I foresee is wanting it to stay indoors and leaving the outdoors open. I think it makes a lot more sense for what we're trying to accomplish. And then on the athletic UIL side, I think you used the word actively competing.
Actively participating.
Actively
They were actively participating.
So if they're on the bench, then they would be wearing their masks, but if they're practicing against each other, then they can,
That was UIL guidance.
yeah, I think,
Yeah, I knew it was, I couldn't remember how it was worded.
Now, we put that mandate out for like volleyball. Does that also mean that the visiting team's gonna have to do the same thing?
no. I don't think we can impose that on another team coming into our facility.
I mean, it's just something we have to think about. If
That's
we're
going
gonna
to get
impose it
very
on our students
problematic.
and not the other team.
Going to get just going to tell you, it's going to be very problematic to tell fans when they come into the volleyball games that you have to put a mask on. I mean, yeah, and that's just, we're going to figure it out, but this is about to be very problematic, I'll just tell you.
Because there's so many facets of it.
Yes.
Actually, when we played Alice the other day, most of the players on that court had their mask on from Alice.
Did they?
Yes.
But they're one of the schools that has a mask mandate.
Yes.
So that'll go back to communication from the athletic department to the other athletic department.
So did we,
Maybe you could put something, that the sports would fall under UIL guidance.
Right now, is
There's
UIL,
no mask?
There's no mask.
there's no
requirement.
voice right now
No.
or statement.
No.
So visiting teams, we don't have jurisdiction over, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was easier when it was across the board and everybody was doing the same thing.
That
Because-
you just circled right back around to where I started.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That is the issue, and I think that's the struggle that, and probably why so many boards have struggled to get to this point you're trying to do, is because when you start opening up all those little pieces, it's like, now, how do you deal with that? Because if we were all on an island alone and we were the only ones doing it, it's one thing. But not to say that it can't be done. Apparently, some districts are somehow making it happen. But I don't have all those answers tonight for you. But you tell me what you want to do, and we'll figure it out.
So Alice had the Alice team, but they didn't ask us as the visiting team to do so. They just had their students, their student athletes.
Yeah, they're student. We had a couple of our girls that were wearing masks when they were sitting out, but not on the court. They had most of their players on the court wearing the mask. Just about every one of them had a mask on.
The other option is the other option is to concentrate on the school day and exclude your athletic events. Most of your athletic events are outside anyway, other than the volleyball games that are going on.
So we could have, add a last sentence. Okay, so the bottom of page 2, the last whereas statement, add a sentence that says, except while team athletes are actively participating. Or while Panther athletes, if you want to get real specific. So they would be the exception. They would not have to wear a mask. We would not mandate our athletes to wear a mask when they're actively participating, in a game or what have you, indoors. Because the rest of this applies indoors.
Correct.
So you're saying except when students are actively participating?
athletes.
Athletes? So you're saying just athletes? So like you want the Falk and Charlie Marshall and middle school PE kids to wear masks when they're doing their indoor PE activities?
What does that look like?
It's children running and playing and bouncing basketballs and doing hula hoops and doing jump rope, doing
What they did last
they're
year, Wayne.
doing activities, yes.
The fall, what was it, they wore the mask when they transitioned. Pretty much where they were, and then was it second, and first and second graders wore them, or second graders? Like, the dates, all that changed, so.
Yeah, it changed so many
much
times,
and-
yeah.
And moved, and we've tried to keep up with it as it moved, and leave the other behind. When they're outside playing, they try to say, be 10 feet apart. If you're active, because you're breathing, and that was pretty much it. And then they got away from, so much of the touching, transmitting and all that, so then we, let them go to the, playground and play on those, and so it just kept moving and evolving. Pretty much actively participating, it's hard to breathe and, run around with a mask on, so that's why they put that was a UIL athletic terminology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
the-
UIL does not apply to our PE or recess
No.
type
No.
of functions.
And that's the distinction that we're trying to make. We're trying to distinguish our UIL athletic competition teams away from what we're requiring in our normal everyday activities inside our school buildings. So if we want to exclude them and not have them, because it's going to be difficult with other teams coming in from a competition standpoint for our staff to administer and police, I think there's no way that's going to be manageable for us. So I think that portion of it will have to be excluded.
Yeah.
I agree.
Exclude all indoor athletic activities.
So you could just keep this and say, one component of the district-wide approach should be the required wearing of mask indoors at Aransas Pass ISD, consistent with guidance from CDC and the AAP, beginning September 1st, 2021, with review each regularly scheduled board meeting, period. Exception is for UIL athletic events. Could be one possible way. I'm just trying to keep it from turning that long sentence already into a very long
Okay.
sentence and
I
add,
think that keeps it clean.
So what this would say then is that the only time they can't wear masks indoors is during UIL athletic events. We're not requiring that of anyone during that time. But just so I can understand, so, when you say athletic events, do you mean like when the high school's practicing, they cannot wear their mask? And games, any practicing or any activity, as long as they're a UI athletic event, right? And then students that are in PE, that's not a UIL sanctioned, they will wear their mask when they're doing their athletic activities.
We're really talking about competition, right?
On the UIL side, yes.
And we're talking about, even with those UIL games, that it is, or preseason games, that it's for the athletes. We're not talking about fans. We're talking about just the athletes, correct?
So you want us to police the fans coming into the gym wearing the mask?
You're going to have spectators coming from different communities,
They don't have a mask mandate.
and there's not a statewide mask mandate.
It's gonna be kind of hard to enforce.
I'm-
So
you're gonna have a lot of trouble. You mean more policemen at the gate?
But this will apply to our people sitting on the home side, but the visitor side is going to be exposed?
You're not gonna be able to do that.
Doesn't apply to the parents, it's gonna apply to the kids, just those that are in our school district. That we have no control on parents. The only thing that we can control really is how we're gonna mandate our students. And
But businesses say you must wear a mask to come in here. We don't have that option as a district to
I
say,
would say you have that option, but it's gonna be very difficult to implement.
I mean, we can say we want it done, and they'll turn around and tell us, y'all don't have the authority to do it.
You're gonna put our staff in a bad situation.
well, right now, the governor's will say, we don't have the authority to do this. So,
Actually, this is giving us the authority right now, but like we said, it might even change by the 30th.
can we do something for athletic events? Because you have folks sitting very close to each other for an hour at least, or longer. Do we want a
Yeah.
social distance? What do we want to do to mitigate people being in an enclosed area for at least an hour or 2 hours?
So we're not only talking about student population, you're wanting to address visitors coming into our facilities as well.
Because then what we're going to say is, students and employees, whenever you're indoors, except if you go to a basketball game, you can take your mask off. But if you're in the classroom across the hall, you have to have a mask on. That's my point. What's the difference when you're talking about, if we're doing this to try to mitigate or delay exposures?
You're raising a valid point, and the way I would answer that is, it is gonna be nearly impossible for our staff to police people coming from other communities to make them wear masks inside our facilities. It's under a UIL governance sanction for the competition, and UIL is not mandating this. So the team coming into our facility does not have to wear that mask. They just may not even come up and show and play us.
Well, I'm not talking about the team. I'm not talking about the athletes dribbling the ball or hitting the volleyball. What I'm talking about is people sitting in the stands.
But how do you enforce that? You can't
We
take them to
have,
jail.
we have our officer that's there anyway.
They're probably not gonna.
As you're coming in, do
He's
you have your
not
mask
gonna-
on?
He's not gonna enforce it because he doesn't have any
has no
authority to enforce it.
Authority over that.
Yeah, he doesn't have any law behind
It's a
him.
problem that it's not a mandate right now,
Yeah.
so we
The
kind of have our
problem with
hands
the whole
tied.
thing is we really don't have the authority to do any of this. So when you do this, you're just taking a step out there that, and that was kind of my point at the beginning, even though I can see the merit in it, enforcing this anywhere is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to, this is, this is going to cause, and I'm sorry to get emotional, but this is going to cause a lot of mental and emotional stress for a lot of us. And I just don't know, and I'm sorry I wasn't going to give my personal opinion, but I understand what y'all are trying to do, but I just don't think what you're about to put us through and the trauma that this is going to cause for some, I don't know that there's enough data to prove that it's worth it. And I apologize for my emotions, but we've lived this once, and it was very difficult when we had a mandate that everyone in the state was doing it. It was hellacious to try to handle. And now we're going to be at one district stepping out, and I applaud you for that. I applaud your courage. I applaud your foresight. I applaud that, and I understand the parents wanting this. I understand all that. But the actual implementation of this is going to be very difficult. My heart is breaking right now. The emotion is coming from me having to go back and tell our babies that while you are playing, you must wear a mask in the gym while you're running and playing. It's breaking my heart because we're going backwards. I don't know what the answer is, but this is breaking my heart because I'm very concerned. But we're going to make it happen. So I apologize.
No, and then the thing about it is we're all passionate. I mean, and I operate from the standpoint there's always a solution to a problem. If the board's consensus is, and we're not only one school district in the state of Texas, they're jumping out there and passing a mask mandate right now. There's probably close to over 100 that are doing it. It's just finding the way
Yes.
for us to implementing. And from my perspective, where I'm sitting is we're trying to accomplish two things. We're trying to protect our students and our staff. And the one problem that we have is what are we going to do on the UIL athletic side when we have people from other communities coming here? And exactly like she echoed, it's going to be very hard to enforce that with those spectators that are coming. If we want to move forward with this mask mandate, I don't know how we can incorporate implementing the enforcement for those outside spectators that don't live in our community coming in here. And when we don't enforce it with the outside communities coming in, it's going to be hard for us to enforce it on our own spectators inside this facility. It's just one portion of the big pie that we don't have any control over. We have control during our school day and our students and our teachers and our staff, but that one little window of time when athletic competition is going on, I don't foresee us having the ability to control that aspect of it.
What are your thoughts on social distancing the bleachers? They're not full anyway, right now anyway, so no mask, but at least,
I think it goes right back to exactly what we're talking about, having hard to be able to enforce.
You're gonna have somebody say, that's my friend over there, I wanna sit by them, or that's my cousin over there, I'm gonna sit by them. Or somebody from another family saying, I'm gonna sit, it's gonna be
We
kind of
put
hard
the
to.
dots, I think we had like dots that we put out on the seats.
Yeah.
That's
and-
right, I remember
And
now.
even last year, we had trouble getting people to, let's sit on the dots, don't sit anywhere else. So, but once again, like I said, I apologize for my
Well, you could always,
breakdown there. Coming back to what y'all want, just tell me what you want, and we will figure out how to make it happen. And
could you put something like, like indoors excluding all UIL activities or physical education activities or something like that in there? That way the kids, when they're running, because when they're running playing basketball in the gym, or that, they're doing stuff, and they're not really close together and stuff, so there's not a lot of, even at the PE class, you watch Charlie Marshall, when they line up, they're not sitting shoulder to shoulder with the guy. They're 7 or 10 foot apart, they're all, because they're moving around, jumping up and down, and so they keep them far apart, So when they're indoors like that, and then whenever they break up, they go to little groups and stuff, and they may be shooting baskets or something like that. But that way the kids, just at least we're mitigating them when they're in close contact inside a classroom with a close. The gym's a lot bigger than a classroom, so you got 20 kids in a gym, you got 20 kids in a classroom.
Well, and they're
Just the
spacing
mitigation
them out,
of
they're
the space
moving
with
around,
the
'cause-
virus spreading around. There's less chance for that happening in that environment than in the classroom.
because the ruling was what, 15 minutes?
We had close contact tracing for practices and games, and I believe one of the early football games, they watched the whole video, and the kid was around close to another kid 6 minutes total.
okay.
I was there to play. I had to do one for basketball, and not even that much through the whole practice. They're not that close for that much time during a game.
Yeah, 'cause I think last year the UIL said 15, if you're close contact for 15 minutes, then the kid had to be quarantined or something like that during the game period. If in that, and there was no incident that any kid during basketball or any other activity was close enough to that kid for 15 total minutes.
So what I hear is,
Okay.
is that the two exclusions are excluding UIL athletic competition activities And physical education,
and indoor physical education.
indoor physical education, periods.
So we put exception is for UIL athletic events or indoor physical education classes.
Yes.
Would that be UIL athletic events or activities to include the practices? Which technically,
We could
Could-
put practices
could put
and
practice and
events, so
events.
it's clear.
okay. Just,
So
I just wanted to
exception
be
is for the
sure.
UIL athletic practices and events or indoor physical education classes. I can't read my writing, classes.
The caveat there is you have a student athlete that wants to wear a mask, there's nothing that prevents them from wearing it.
Yeah, they can wear it.
So, I'm just throwing that out there.
Right, right.
And
Okay,
these
so-
athletes, they don't go and, like they used to, go under the net and, shake hands or tap hands with the other team. They haven't been doing that. They wave from a distance, after every deal. So that's a good right there. The thing is that we did get away with was cleaning that ball a little bit more often because they all touch it back and
The
forth.
sweat, yeah.
So that may be something that you can't say that's too much trouble cleaning a ball.
We don't have any control over the UIL officials and those activities.
I'm not saying them. We have the balls in our,
During ours, okay.
the balls that are on our tables where our ladies are sitting at.
got
I mean, it ain't gonna hurt for them to wipe them down once in a while, changing out balls.
Now, this goes back to what Ms. Cook said about disinfecting.
So if we can, for number 2, and I appreciate everyone's comments, and remember I talked earlier about, all the perspectives and compromise so that we get where we need to go. On number 2, if we could, after we say, be the required wearing a mask by APISD students and employees.
I'm sorry, I don't know where you are.
See, when I first read this, I thought we were talking about everybody coming in on APIC property. That's why I asked that question about fans. What we're really saying is it's
Whereas,
our folks, our students, and our employees. We're not saying globally anybody who comes on,
Okay,
right?
but where are you looking? You're
Oh,
looking
I'm
at
sorry,
one of
page
the.
3.
The number 2, that's actually in the,
Oh, okay.
the deal, in the resolution.
well, that number 2 would be one of
That's
these.
what we're gonna sub these for.
That's what this is sub for. That number 2 is, you're gonna approve one of those.
Everything highlighted.
Right, but it doesn't specify who this applies to. We don't say who this applies to if we're talking about just Panthers, our students and our employees. Do we?
Well, I think the way this was written is that the expectation was that when you're indoors, except for these exceptions, whether you're a staff, a student, a visitor, whomever, would be wearing a mask. So like when we have parents come meet with their children or visitors come in, they would all need to wear masks unless the way the exception would be they were coming to attend a UIL athletic event from they were coming from outside to do an athletic event. We're having a UIL practice, or they're indoors doing physical education classes. That would be the only
Correct.
time the mask could be removed. The rest of the time, you would wear your mask.
Correct.
Okay, so then the UIL exception, UIL event and practices exception is not just for our students, but it's for spectators and all. That's what we're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My focus is so much on the students when we were talking about UIL and the athletes during game time. Okay.
Our decision doesn't just come out of what we're gonna decide. We're gonna go, a lot of our decision has to do with what our staff is asking. You see, it's over 50% staff. And then you families, it's 72% of those that did. You know, to me, is they're asking for us to do something. That they wouldn't be just putting this in, you know, and say, oh, no, we're just gonna do that. We have many are asking for us to do something. Like I said, I've gotten calls. And, you know, they're saying, hey, you know, a couple of them said, I'm willing to take my kid out if y'all not gonna do the right thing, and I'll homeschool them. And like y'all said, we can't afford to start losing kids because we're losing funding.
Are we good on the changes? Yes?
Sorry. Yes.
Everybody clear?
I think I have it.
Is the September 1st a realistic date? I mean, I was just saying September 1, but is that enough, or does it need to be further to
That's a question
September?
for Ms. Cook to answer.
Yes.
She has to
Before,
September 1st. Good as time as any. And then I would assume, then you said regular scheduled board meeting, so on our September 13th,
Yes.
we would have as an item for
Just
discussion.
review,
Just the review.
continue or, you
So I
know,
guess you'll want it as an action item to review and or no?
Yeah, but you, go ahead.
continue or rescind.
oh, wait a minute, let's think about that. Okay, so,
Well,
yeah.
you can list it as a discussion item and then list it as an action item. And through discussion, if we decide we want to take action, we can. If not, when we get to the action item, we
Right.
can table it.
Good.
Of this resolution?
No.
No.
This resolution is passing tonight.
Okay, so what you were just speaking of at our
Is the
next meeting
review.
is the review,
If we want to
because,
continue, because things
And
change.
then
and
your
they're- change are
action could
volatile.
be to, you know, do nothing because it stays in place, or if you want to change something, you could change something.
are we,
It's just having a placeholder on the agenda so you can do it, because without it, you wouldn't be able to act on it.
and are we doing for 30 days beginning September 1st? Which
Yes.
one of these?
Took the 30 days
We took the
off.
30 days off, and we did beginning September 1st with review at the monthly scheduled
Scheduled
board
board
meeting.
meeting.
Regularly scheduled board meeting.
I'm sure Ms. Cook worded that a lot better than I did, but.
And we'll retype all this in the morning, and because it'll need Mr. Galvan's and Ms. Dios's signature, and then,
I do have one more question before you read it. Does it have to go back to council, or should it go back? It may not be required, but should it go back to council with these changes that we've made?
I believe the gist of what she drafted for us keeps us legal. We just added dates and
yeah, we didn't.
excluded
Change.
some,
Excluded some things.
activities. So we didn't add anything that she didn't have preview to.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I think we're good. I think we're good. All right. Do you have a motion to approve the board resolution to address the health and safety due to the COVID pandemic with the changes noted with Superintendent Cook?
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Olivia. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Molinak. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
Okay, and we will make it happen, so we're gonna make it happen.
Record reflects that there's no other business before the board. The time is now 9:33, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for